Shalom, shalom, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pulse of Israel here in our eternal and ancestral homeland, the land of Israel, in our beautiful, biblical, and indigenous, ancestral, and indivisible capital, Jerusalem, since King David's time. Speaking once again with expert on the Middle East and Islam, Dr. Mordechai Kedar. Love having the opportunity to talk to you, Dr.
Pleasure,
Kedar.
Avi, and my honor.
Thank you. And I'm always talking to people. You want to hear the real truth from someone who listens to the Arabs in Arabic and has the understanding? Follow Dr. Mordechai Kedar. Not the other experts that are on the media that don't listen to Arabic or take it seriously. I don't want to talk to you about Iran. I don't want to talk to you about Hamas. I don't even want to talk to you about the Biden administration messing up the whole Middle East. I want to talk to you about Egypt. Egypt is a player in the Middle East who is supposed to be a peace partner and ally of Israel. After Israel, it is one of the biggest recipients of United States financial aid. Its whole army basically is an American armed army, the strongest, the biggest Arab army in the Middle East today. And here we have 50 tunnels that have been discovered underneath the Rafah border with Egypt, meaning Egypt, whether knowing or unknowing, has allowed rockets to be smuggled into Gaza all these years and weapons to be smuggled into Gaza all these years.
Even after the war started.
Even after the war started, even more information. We just had a shooting. An Egyptian soldier shot at Israeli soldiers in Rafah across the border the other day. Egypt is a major problem.
Well, Egypt plays a very, I would say, very strange role. On one side, we have peace agreement with Egypt. We have agreements. We have ways how to talk to Egyptians and maybe to cooperate on all kinds of things, especially when it comes to Sinai. Israel helped them tremendously to deal with the ISIS and Al-Qaeda activists and terrorists who took asylum in the Sinai desert. Yet, when it comes to Gaza, here we see a totally different picture. When Sisi came to power in 2013, he immediately put an end to the smuggling of arms to Gaza. He actually straightened or flattened with the earth large parts of the Egyptian part of Rafah in order to disable these people who were smuggling ammunition and rockets and missiles from Egypt to Gaza. Yet, with the time, things have changed very slowly, but very firmly. These days, the situation is that the tribes, the Bedouin tribes in Sinai, apparently with the supervision of the Egyptian army, enable smuggling of ammunition, missiles, rockets from Egypt, which they come from Iran, into Gaza. To a degree that there are even rumors that Sisi's son is in charge of the whole thing. Of course, he's making big money out of it. And this is actually what apparently happens because this is a source of income for these Bedouin tribes in Sinai. And the Egyptian regime knows that if they don't have the income from this smuggling industry, they might harm the Egyptian army, the Egyptian facilities, the Egyptian citizens in Sinai. Because this is exactly what these tribes did until they got this monopoly on smuggling weapons and ammunition and missiles and rockets into Gaza. So in order to appease them, and in order to keep them away from the Egyptian interests in Sinai, the Egyptian regime actually appeases them by allowing them to smuggle all these things to Gaza. Apparently this is what happened. I have no idea if Israel knew about this or not. I have no idea if Israel actually spent the time and the effort to find out if this thing is real. I don't know, because Israeli intelligence looks at Egypt as a friendly country. Maybe unknowing that this is the dirty game of the Egyptians. Now, we came to Gaza and we find all these stockpiles of ammunition and weapons and rockets and missiles, which definitely were not produced on the spot. Means they came from somewhere, not from Israel. Iranian weapons do not come through Israel. Okay, so here we are.
And they didn't come from the sea. They didn't come from Israel. The only other place they can come through is the last remaining border, which is
Egypt.
from Egypt.
And the Egyptians, therefore, if this is correct, they are, I would say, responsible for the atrocities which we saw from Gaza. Those missiles which were launched from Gaza to Israel, whether it is close to Gaza or far away from Gaza, including Ben Gurion Airport, including Tel Aviv, including everywhere, it's actually something which came to Gaza from Egypt.
From Egypt, which the Egyptian authorities
somehow neglect to
know about, don't talk about.
Right. Now, if Israel knew about this, then Israel was silent about the smuggling, it is bad. If Israel didn't know about this, it's even worse.
Even worse.
It's even worse. That Israel neglected, or the Israeli intelligence neglected the Egyptian front to a degree that Egypt apparently has done all this thing without Israeli knowledge. This is very bad.
Now let me go further, because I just recently made a video about an expose by an investigative journalist in America. Her name is Laura Loomer, who came out with information and put it out there, and it's been talked about in some news outlets already, how Israeli forces in Gaza have found American munitions, I think it's called the SM-112, whatever munitions, that have been tracked to have been sold by America to Egypt. So it's not just the smuggling of Iranian or some other foreign entity produced rockets and munitions that have gotten to Hamas, but it's actually Egyptian owned, sold to Egypt by America rockets and munitions. I don't know about rockets, but munitions and bombs that have gone to Hamas in Gaza, being used against us.
Well, you can say that maybe some soldiers smuggled it or stole it from the storage of these munitions and sold it secretly to the Bedouins or somebody else who smuggled it to Gaza. In Egypt, this can happen. Unfortunately, it happens also in Israel, when some storages are being burst into and people are stealing weapons and ammunition. Yes, it could be. Yet, if this can be identified as coming from Egypt, it actually comes into the big picture of the industry of tunnels and maybe smuggling above the earth as well, which was between Egypt and Gaza. This actually puts Egypt in very, I would say, sensitive position, not only vis-a-vis Israel, it's also vis-a-vis the Americans. And let's hope that now Egypt at least feels responsible, and Egypt does something in order to maintain pressure on Hamas to release the hostages as a return to what they did through the years against Israel.
Well, I want to push you one step forward. This gives us a very deepening picture that, again, Egypt is not necessarily an ally. The question is it an enemy? And again, they have the largest, most prepared army. To do what with? And I always talk about, like, Israel has to be very wary of Egypt and the Egyptian army, because I don't know that many other enemies that Egypt needs a huge army to fight against one day, except to use it one day against Israel. Is that crazy talk, or is there something to that?
Not that it's not crazy talk. It is actually part of a larger picture. All the gears in Egypt are talking about an enemy who comes from the east.
Who's talking about that?
In the Egyptian gears of the army, when they
In the army.
when they are talking about the enemy which attacks us Egyptians, it's always an enemy who comes from the east. Now, who is?
We're the only enemy from the east.
We are the only enemy.
And I'll just add to that, because recently I saw a picture from an Egyptian headquarters with their head army officials, and they had pictures of Israeli Merkava tanks on the wall. We're the only army in the Middle East that have Israeli Merkava tanks.
So this is what we should know. The facilities which they built in Sinai and the tunnels which they dug under the Suez Canal enabled them to spread the Egyptian army vis-a-vis Israel in 1 day or 2 days. So this is very easy for them. And, once you have the ability, that you might use it.
And then it brings up again how Israel's defense establishment and senior defense officials are once again being caught with their pants down in terms of their advice also to the government, because if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, according to the Camp David Accords, Egypt is not supposed to have tanks or units on the Sinai border with Israel. But over the years, Israel has allowed them to be right on our border.
The peace agreement mentions that the altogether power which they can have on Sinai Desert, beyond the Suez Canal, is not more than 1 battalion.
In all of Sinai.
In all Sinai.
Right.
But what they did is they built many battalion places in many places. So now they can have many battalions, and they said it's according to the peace agreement, because they don't know where the battalion will be. Here. So they made many bases and many facilities for battalions in many places, claiming that they don't know where the 1 battalion will be.
But I'm going even further than that, because I know over the years, as Egypt has claimed, we need forces in Sinai to go after and stop the terror from the Bedouin. Israel has allowed them to have these forces in the Sinai, and they're even on our border.
So not only this, Israel allowed them to have more forces than 1 battalion in order to take care of the Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Okay, they took care of them. So, but they stayed in Israel. What for?
Right, and Israel hasn't made a big deal about making sure they get rid of them.
And this is the problem, that we took the peace with Egypt as for granted. And this is wrong. Why? When President Sadat signed the peace agreement with us in 1979, this was based on a fatwa, on a
religious ruling,
which was issued by the Al-Azhar institution, which is the supreme Islamic authority in Egypt. And they told him, they wrote him, that you, the president of Egypt, you can give the Israelis peace just like what our prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, gave to the infidels of Mecca in Hudaybiyah. Now, this is a code word, which Hudaybiyah, it's actually a village where the peace agreement was signed. But this means a temporary peace.
Temporary peace until the enemy is weak enough that we can go and attack and destroy them.
Exactly.
And that's the same fatwa that Yasser Arafat received in order to sign the Oslo Accords.
What? He was talking about the Hudaybiyah peace, means temporary peace, day and night,
right,
in order to convince the Palestinians that this peace is worth the efforts, because one day he will be able to cancel it and to attack the Israelis from within.
So I didn't know that about Sadat and the Camp David Peace Accords, but again, that even strengthens the understanding that any peace agreement made with our Arab Muslim enemies around us
is
temporary.
Is only because Israel is too powerful, too dangerous to mess with, and invincible. So they give us temporary peace, waiting until we are weakening ourselves, or are we getting asleep on God.
Right.
And apparently this is what they smell now from Israel. If Israel cannot get rid of Hamas after like 8 months of fighting on the ground, maybe Israel is not as strong as it was in the past. So maybe now is the time to look again at the peace agreement
Right.
as they signed in 1979 because they didn't have any choice
Right.
those days.
Everyone, now you see why it's so important for me to be able to interview Dr. Kedar every once in a while, to be able to have you be able to have more informed information of the truth of what's going on the ground.
Understanding.
But I do not want you to be depressed, because ultimately, I always say this, Dr. Kedar, one day we will have peace. And we're going to have peace when we, the Jewish people and the Jewish state of Israel, stand up for our rights, stand up for the justice of our cause, and make ourselves strong enough and invincible enough so that all of our Arab Muslim enemies are scared to lift a pinky against us. That's when we're going to have peace, and we're waiting for the leaders.
The rule is this. If Israel is dangerous, powerful, deterring, and invincible, it will be able to get temporary peace. However, if Israel is dangerous, invincible, deterring, and dangerous to mess with, forever, it will enjoy temporary peace
Forever. And that's what we're going to be bringing about, and that's why we're sharing this inspiring, politically incorrect information so that we can get to that place and wake up our fellow Jews and fellow Jews here in Israel as quickly as possible so we become that invincible force forever to be able to have a peaceful future. Dr. Kedar, thank you so much once again.
Pleasure to be here.
Always a pleasure. And everyone, thank you for joining us for another episode of Pulse of Israel here in our eternal and ancestral homeland, the land of Israel, in our eternal, beautiful, biblical, and indivisible capital, Jerusalem, since King David's time. If you are not yet a subscriber, go to pulseofisrael.com and click to subscribe to our daily, inspiring, politically incorrect truth. And if you enjoy these videos and you believe they are important for more people to see, just click on the donate button every once in a while so we can have the support to be able to reach many more people. Shalom, everyone, and thanks for watching.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.